The old hag is legally a stranger to me. If you want to touch the baby, pay me $3,000 each time. Katie said this while reaching out her hand. Matt and I were taken aback by her words. Indeed, legally, Katie and I are strangers. However, in the eyes of society, we are mother and daughter. I thought to myself, it's time for me to firmly respond as her mother. As I was thinking this, Matt murmured, "Shall we go home?" As soon as I heard those words, I felt all the strength leave my body. I was embarrassed for getting angry at a child. I took a deep breath and turned towards Matt. Then, I nodded slightly to show my agreement. Yes. We then headed for the entrance. I had raised Katie thinking of her as my daughter. But, Katie did not think the same way. If that's how she feels, then I have my thoughts too. I'll just treat her as a stranger as well. She's an adult now, so it's okay to let her go, right? This will allow us both to live more comfortably. But as your mother, I have one last thing to teach you. That is regret and reflection. Make sure to reflect and regret it. This is my parting gift to you as a mother. With that thought, we left Katie's house. My name is Jessica Morgan. I am a 43-year-old part-time employee at an insurance company. Currently, I live with my husband, Matt, who works at a bank. Up until a short while ago, our daughter Katie lived with us too. It's in the past tense, but it's not a sad story. Katie just got married and moved out. Katie's marriage was a year ago. Honestly, I felt relieved. Indeed, the house feels too quiet with just Matt and me. But, Katie and I were never close. That's why I felt relieved when she got married. If we were truly mother and daughter, would I not feel this way? Since Katie left, I've found myself thinking this more often. Katie and I are not biologically related. She is Matt's daughter from a previous relationship. But from the moment we met, I have raised Katie as my child. Matt acknowledges this, but I don't know what Katie thinks. Even if Katie doesn't accept me as her mother, I intend to continue being her mother. If Katie becomes a mother, will she understand how I feel? Katie is currently pregnant and will soon have a child. Our relationship might improve. For now, I harbor a faint hope as I look forward to the birth of my first grandchild. I met Katie when she was in middle school. At that time, I was working at an insurance company. My department was in phone support. As you can imagine, not just in insurance companies, but in many places. Operators are mostly female. Of course, my company was no exception. It was mostly women, with hardly any men around. Without any romantic prospects, I just kept getting older. Eventually, after turning 30, I started being called the old maid. I've thought about quitting so many times. That's when a colleague invited me to a mixer. Probably, they wanted me to be the wingman. Even so, if there was a chance to meet someone, I happily took on the role. That's where I met Matt, who was also put in the role of a wingman. We hit it off immediately and started dating. After a while, Matt told me this. Actually, I'm divorced. You mean you have a history of divorce? Are you having trouble with your ex-wife? No, there's no trouble, but that was when I first learned that Matt had a daughter. And she was in middle school. So, my daughter might oppose our marriage. Let's meet her at least once. Middle school is a very sensitive age. Understandably, Matt was worried. But without meeting and talking, we wouldn't know. Especially girls mature early. She might understand. With that hope, I decided to meet Matt's daughter. Nice to meet you. I'm Katie, the daughter. My first impression was of a bright and energetic girl. She seemed mature and straightforward. I'm dating your father, Jessica. So, Dad, you're marrying her? Katie asked so nonchalantly. Matt nodded with a bit of confusion. Yes. I'd like to, but wouldn't Katie mind? Why? I'm not a child anyway, let Dad do as he likes. Hearing those words, I felt relieved. Matt seemed to feel the same, a sense of relief was apparent. Then, when Matt said he was going to the restroom and left the table, Katie suddenly leaned in. You're Jessica, right? What are you going to do about work? I plan to become a part-time employee after getting married. Matt isn't good at household chores, so I have to do them.
Ah,
I get it. Dad can't do anything around the house. Katie chuckled as she said this. I couldn't help but smile too. She's such an honest and adorable girl. I thought we could get along well. That's when Katie finally showed her true colors. But, Dad has bad taste too. If he's going to remarry, he should have chosen someone younger and more beautiful. What? Did I hear that right? Just as I was pondering this, Katie continued, laughing. You're probably after his money, but too bad. Even though he works at a bank, Dad doesn't make much. It's not about the money. So, you settled? You're not that beautiful. And it seems like you don't have much luck with men, Jessica. Katie laughed heartily. I was speechless. So, this is her true nature. Her personality is nothing like Matt's. But since she's going to be my daughter, I need to properly scold her. However, I have no experience with this, so I didn't know what to do. As I was feeling confused, Matt came back. That interrupted our conversation. In the end, my first meeting with Katie ended with her saying whatever she wanted to me. After that, I couldn't build a relationship with Katie. Eventually, Matt proposed to me. I was happy about the proposal, and I believed Matt would be a good husband. The problem was my relationship with Katie. Well, I thought I could gradually build a relationship with Katie. If I stand firm as a mother, everything will be fine. With that thought, I accepted Matt's proposal. Also, my job changed from a full-time employee to a part-time employee. My role also changed from an operator to an insurance agent. Thus, Matt and I got married, but it turned out to be more difficult than I had imagined. Katie, who was in middle school, was right in her rebellious phase. She wouldn't listen to what I or even Matt said. Moreover, Katie's inherent personality wasn't great. She would talk back while sweetly asking for pocket money. You can't waste money. Huh? You live off Dad's money and have the nerve to lecture me? It's not a lecture, but... Shut up. You're not my mother, so you have no right to complain about what I do. I was silenced by Katie's words. Indeed, I'm not her mother. But I was trying to act like one. That's why I scolded her as if she were my child. However, it seems that I still need to get through to Katie. As I sighed, Katie got irritated. Whatever. I'll just get it from Dad. Katie slammed the door and left. Watching her, all I could do was sigh. Raising a child is this difficult. I can only be grateful to my mother now. Now, I reflect on my actions when I was younger. But that was also a relief. If Katie becomes a parent, she might feel the same way. If that happens, my efforts will not have been in vain. Now is the time to be patient. Anyway, I encouraged myself and continued with my daily life. As Katie entered high school, she began to spend even more money. Whenever Matt and I tried to caution her, Katie would invariably say, I have to fit in with my friends. Do you want me to be left out? Faced with that, we couldn't say anything back. After thinking it over, I suggested Katie get a part-time job. If you want an allowance, you should earn it yourself. Huh? If I get a job, I won't have any time to play. Then, you need to stop wasting money. I give you a minimal allowance every month, don't I? Katie bristled at my words. A woman who's just leeching off someone else's family. has no right to act all high and mighty. I should have opposed the marriage. Katie stomped her feet and left. Then, she locked herself in her room. For the time being, I thought it best to leave her alone. Initially, that's what I thought, but Katie showed no signs of coming out. Worried, I tried speaking to her after a little while. However, Katie didn't respond. From that day on, Katie stopped speaking to us. This continued even after she graduated from high school. We became increasingly anxious. Hey, are we just going to leave things as they are? Yeah, we can't just ignore this situation. After graduating high school, Katie didn't pursue further education. That's why I was scolding her. If you're not going to continue your studies, you should find a job. Huh? Don't interfere with my life. But, I'm your mother, so. Before I could finish, Katie suddenly raised her voice. Don't pretend to be my mother. You're just a stranger. I was left speechless by Katie's words. Katie continued with a stern look. I'll get a job, okay? And I'm planning to marry my boyfriend soon anyway. Boyfriend? Marriage? Yes. Unlike you, I'm cute, so I have my pick of guys. Katie snorted with disdain. I was too taken aback to say anything. Of course, I wouldn't oppose the relationship. If it's serious, I'm willing to approve of the marriage. But, the partner might not be serious. Especially when they're young, many things can happen. The partner might not intend to marry Katie and could just be playing around. Keeping that in mind, I discussed it with Matt. We should have him come over then. Yeah, let's do that. We agreed on that course of action. Then, we informed Katie about our decision. Reluctantly, Katie brought her partner over soon after. It's more accurate to say the partner came forward willingly. Regardless, we arranged to meet Katie's boyfriend on Sunday. I apologize for the late introduction. I'm Peter Owen, and I'm dating Katie. Katie's boyfriend, Peter, seemed like a very sincere person. I thought she could have dated someone with a better personality. Honestly, that's what I felt. But, Peter seemed to have his heart set on Katie. I work as a full-time employee. Therefore, please allow me to marry Katie. What was supposed to be a simple meeting turned into a marriage proposal. Now that it was mentioned, we couldn't just pretend it didn't happen. Fortunately, Peter worked for a well-known local company. It's unlikely they would be unhappy. Jessica, what do you think about him? He seems sincere and a good person. I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Eventually, we approved their marriage right there and then. Katie may have her issues, but if Peter thinks it's right, it's not our place to intervene. Katie and Peter married and moved out of our house. That was a year ago. Not long after, Katie called. I'm pregnant. Really? Congratulations. When is the baby due? It's still a while away. More importantly, you'll give me a celebration gift, right? I want like $5,000, no, $10,000. Katie talked only about money. I was dismayed. Yet, the thought of becoming a grandmother filled me with indescribable joy. When the baby is born, we'll give you a gift. Just be patient. You promise? Absolutely. While pulling a face, I managed to end the call. Several months later, Katie safely gave birth to a boy. As promised, I brought a celebration gift to Katie. However, I was refused a visit right after the birth. I left the gift with Peter, who was accompanying me, and asked him to let us know when we could visit again. About 10 days later, Katie contacted us to say she had been discharged. That's when we went to visit Katie. Unfortunately, Peter was at work and couldn't be there. Still, the chance to meet my grandchild was enough to make us visit. We were led to the living room, where a baby boy lay in a crib in the corner. "Oh, he's so cute. Of course, he's my child," Katie boasted with pride. "May I hold him for a moment?" As I reached out to hold the baby, Katie swatted my hand away. "The old hag is legally a stranger. If you want to touch the baby, pay me $3,000 each time." Katie said this while reaching out her hand. Matt and I were taken aback. Indeed, legally, Katie and I are strangers. However, in the eyes of society, we are mother and daughter. I thought to myself, it's time for me to firmly respond as her mother. As I was thinking this, Matt murmured, "Shall we go home?" As soon as I heard those words, I felt all the strength leave my body. I was embarrassed for getting angry at a child. I took a deep breath and turned towards Matt. Then, I nodded slightly to show my agreement. Yes. We then headed for the entrance. I had raised Katie thinking of her as my daughter. But, Katie did not think the same way. If that's how she feels, then I have my thoughts too. I'll just treat her as a stranger as well. She's an adult now, so it's okay to let her go, right? This will allow us both to live more comfortably. But as your mother, I have one last thing to teach you. That is regret and reflection. Make sure to reflect and regret it. This is my parting gift to you as a mother." With that thought, we left Katie's house. While driving home in Matt's car, I decided to open up to him about my feelings. You know, about Katie. I had been indulging Katie as my daughter until now. But, given she's treated us like strangers, I plan to be strict from now on. I intend to treat Katie as a stranger too. I shared this with Matt. He nodded gravely. It must be my fault for how I raised her. I think I was too lenient as well. So, let's be strict starting today. Right. With her attitude like that, being strict is the only way she'll learn. Thus, we reached a consensus. And we decided to be strict with Katie. First, we started by not contacting Katie. Next, we ignored any attempts she made to contact us. Soon, an irritated Katie showed up at our house. "Hey. I know you're there. Open up." Katie was yelling at the front door. Fortunately, she didn't bring the child. So, Matt and I decided to ignore her. If it's just Katie, whatever she does shouldn't matter. Eventually, Katie raised her voice at the intercom. "Hurry up and give me money. I'm in trouble here without any money." I was startled for a moment. It would be terrible if something had happened to the child. I was about to stand up. However, Matt stopped me. "That's a lie. She just needs money for herself." "How can you be so sure?" Matt explained the situation he had learned a few days ago. He had met Peter at the bank where he works. Peter was there for work and shared some troubles. Katie's spending was out of control, and she wanted new clothes for an upcoming reunion. But, with a newborn, life was hard. Peter had asked Katie to be patient this time. However, Katie stormed out after getting angry. Peter thought she had given up. But actually, she just went to Peter's parents' house. There, she tried to ask her in-laws for money. She did that? Well, it seems Peter's parents refused, so she must have come here as a last resort. Matt spoke with a look of disbelief. I was lost in thought. Whether his story was true or not, I couldn't be sure. Just then, Katie's voice came through. "I need money for new clothes. I'll charge $2,000 for one baby cuddle." At that moment, I felt embarrassed for even considering her plea moments before. There was no other choice but to be thorough. I decided to take action and picked up the intercom. "Enough. You're causing a disturbance in the neighborhood. Then, let's make it $1,000. No, $500. It's not about the money. Go home. After hanging up the intercom, Katie's loud voice could be heard from outside. Fine. Remember this. After that, Katie's voice was no longer heard. It seemed she had finally given up. I felt relieved. Since then, there has been no contact from Katie. Perhaps she learned her lesson. That's what I thought. Then, one day, while working as an insurance agent at a company, something happened. The meeting had just ended smoothly, and I was exchanging farewells with the person in charge. Suddenly, I heard someone call me from behind. Turning around, I saw Peter. Oh, Peter. Are you here for work? Mother. Are you okay? Working like this? What? What do you mean? I heard you were hospitalized. The story was unclear. I decided to move to a different spot to listen to Peter's story. Peter's story went like this. A few days ago, when he got home, Katie told him that her mother was hospitalized, and she needed to stay at the hospital for a while. She wouldn't be able to return home and asked if their child could stay with his parents. Hearing this, Peter was greatly alarmed. He then asked his parents to take care of the child and gave Katie some money, urging her to return to her parents' home immediately. That story of Katie's, could it be a lie? It seems so. If that's the case, where was Katie now and what was she doing after leaving their child with his parents? I had a rough idea but didn't voice it. Instead, I suggested it to Peter. Maybe you should investigate Katie's behavior. Yes, but I want to hear her reasons first. Peter was too lenient. But that was how we had been until recently. So, I decided to push him a bit further. Given the lie, your marriage is already in jeopardy. For your sake, it might be time to consider divorce. You might be right. Satisfied internally, I felt a sense of triumph. Katie had dug her own grave without needing any retribution from us. Feeling a sense of vindication, I decided this would be the starting point for my payback. After parting ways with Peter, I returned to my work. I rushed to finish up and head home. Upon arriving home, Matt soon returned as well. I immediately shared Katie's situation with him. That's what seems to have happened. What? So, Katie lied and went out? It appears so. Why would she do that? Could it be an affair? Matt asked nervously. I nodded slightly. Probably. I think so. What is she thinking? Matt sighed deeply, understanding the situation. Lying about an affair is a common occurrence. However, Katie had only been married for a year, and their child had just been born. It should have been the happiest time in their marriage. If she was having an affair now, it must have been going on before the marriage. Katie's boastful words about having her pick of men flashed through my mind. If her bragging was true, it wouldn't be surprising if she was seeing multiple people at once. While we were pondering this, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. Opening the door without a second thought, we found Katie standing there. You've caused unnecessary trouble. Right off the bat, Katie raised her voice. I responded with a sigh. I haven't done anything. Whatever happened is on you. Shut up. It's because you spoke to Peter about unnecessary things. Katie started causing a scene at the doorstep. To avoid making a scene, I let Katie into the house. Once in the living room, Katie pointed at me and raised her voice again. It's all your fault. Now I might have to get divorced. Calm down. What happened? Shut up. I am calm. Katie began to explain the situation from a few hours ago. Upon her rare return home, Peter had asked her if the story about her mother being hospitalized was a lie. Katie was taken aback, having never imagined such a question. She started making excuses, but nothing added up. Eventually, Katie confessed to going on a trip. The trip itself wouldn't have been a big deal, but the problem was who she went with. Pressed on this issue, Katie dodged the question. But Peter checked her phone's photos, finding evidence. In the photos, Peter recognized a male colleague, smiling alongside Katie. Caught red-handed, Katie couldn't deny she had lied about the trip to be with another man. As a result, Peter mentioned divorce, leading Katie to confront me. "You brought this upon yourself." "Shut up. It's your fault. If you hadn't been there, he wouldn't have found out. Blaming others has its limits." I looked away and sighed. "I'll sue you for damages." "That's impossible. I haven't done anything." "Be prepared. It's going to court." After making her declaration, Katie left the house. Matt and I were left with nothing but sighs. "I'm sorry." "It's okay." Once she realizes it's hopeless, Katie will probably give up. No one would take such a story seriously. But Katie was not the kind of woman to give up easily. Especially when it came to money, her obsession was unparalleled. As proof, Katie had started obsessing over me a few days ago. She bombarded my smartphone with emails like a demon and called me multiple times. When I blocked her calls and ignored everything, Katie started showing up at my workplace. "Bring that woman out." She caused a scene at the reception every day. The company and I were at our wits' end. I couldn't allow her to trouble the company any further. Considering Matt's income was sufficient for us to live on, I decided to resign from my job. Yet, Katie continued her obsession with me. Fed up, I arranged for Katie to be summoned to the law firm we had contracted. With a lawyer present, I confronted Katie. "Katie, I'm going to sue you for damages." "What? What are you talking about?" "I haven't done anything. You've sent countless emails and caused a scene at my company, forcing me to resign." Katie began to argue back, her lips pursed. "So? I haven't done anything wrong. Say whatever you like." "I'm still going to sue." "Suing your daughter? Is that what a parent does?" Katie stood up, agitated. In contrast, I responded calmly. "You said this to me, remember? Legally, we're strangers." "That's what you said. So you're suing me over that?" "Fine. Do whatever you want." "I will. I'll make sure you get divorced." "Living alone at your age will be tough, won't it?" "Aha." Laughing mockingly, Katie stormed out of the law office. She clearly didn't understand the situation yet. "Katie, you no longer have anyone on your side." I watched Katie leave, whispering this in my heart. A few days later, Peter called. He wanted to meet with Matt and me, presumably to discuss Katie. It was clear we needed to talk. So, I agreed to meet Peter at our home. However, when he arrived, he wasn't alone. "Why is Katie here?" "I'm sorry. I brought her." Perhaps their divorce had been finalized. Thinking this, I let them into the house. The atmosphere was tense as Peter began to speak. Naturally, the topic was their divorce. Following the revelation of Katie's affair, Peter and Katie had been discussing divorce. It seemed they had resolved. Katie admitted to the affair and agreed to the divorce. Peter was going to claim damages, and Katie had consented to this arrangement. What about the affair partner? Yes, he was a colleague of mine. Katie's affair partner turned out to be one of Peter's colleagues. Their meeting had occurred at their wedding. Peter had invited his superior from work and demanded damages from the colleague. The colleague agreed to pay the damages willingly and even resigned from his job. I was speechless at the sheer audacity. Glancing at Katie, she quickly averted her gaze. "Well, divorce is inevitable, isn't it? There's the matter of the divorce, but also something about you suing Katie."
Ah.
That. It doesn't concern you, Peter. Smiling, I watched as Peter looked puzzled and glanced at Katie. Isn't there a discrepancy in the story? No. It's not different. But you said I also had a responsibility, right? The story wasn't adding up. I asked Peter for details, leading to an unexpected revelation. Peter's story went as follows. Due to the affair trip incident, Peter and Katie were living separately. During this time, Katie called Peter. During the call, Katie reportedly said while crying, "I've been sued by Mom and her company. Since we're not divorced yet, Peter, you have to take responsibility too." Peter was shocked. Katie had told him. Mom got fired and demands money. The company wants compensation for her mistake. What a cheap fabrication. I listened to the rest of Peter's story with a grimace. Katie told me this, but is it different from what actually happened? I shook my head in disagreement. It's completely different. The real issue is, Katie caused a disturbance at my company, leading to a lawsuit for business obstruction. I had to resign and then sued for damages. Peter's expression darkened as he heard this. Uncharacteristically, he raised his voice at Katie. What is this? It's all because of your selfish actions. That's not it. It's not like that. Katie started her usual excuses. It was all a false accusation. While it's true that I resigned from my company, I didn't do anything to cause trouble. Katie laid out such claims. Then, she sought help from Matt. Dad, you believe me, right? You're on my side, aren't you? No, I can't take your side, Katie. What? Unlike her, you and I are blood related. Katie leaned forward. On the other hand, Matt turned away and answered. About that, I've been thinking of ending our parent-child relationship. What are you talking about? A parent and child are always related. That's for biological parents and children. You're my adopted daughter, and if we annul the adoption, that's the end of it. Katie was speechless at Matt's words. In fact, Katie was not Matt's biological child. Matt's first wife had a newborn girl when they married. That was Katie. Of course, Matt wasn't the father. It was another man. Still, wanting to be Katie's father, Matt married his first wife. However, the marriage eventually failed. As a result, Matt took Katie in, replacing her struggling biological mother. Katie's grown up now. It might be time to dissolve the adoption, don't you think? Wait. What about the lawsuit then? Will I have to face it alone? You're responsible for both the company's disruption and taking Jessica's job. You're an adult, take responsibility. Upon hearing this, Katie burst into tears, crying like a child. It's impossible. I can't pay money or handle a lawsuit with a child. Crying won't help. Everyone here is legally a stranger to you. Katie continued to sob uncontrollably. My words no longer seemed to reach her. Afterward, Peter and Katie divorced. Moreover, Matt pressed Katie for an annulment. Naturally, Katie refused at first as a last stand. As a result, Matt filed for annulment mediation. If Katie continued to refuse, it would lead to an annulment lawsuit. Either way, Katie wouldn't benefit. Moreover, Katie was being sued by both me and the company. There was virtually no escape. Ultimately, Katie lost all the lawsuits and was burdened with debt. She had to pay damages to the company and compensation to me. Not to mention the divorce settlement with Peter. Unable to see any other way out, Katie chose to work at a lucrative night job. Peter gained custody of their child. Katie, unable to see her child, worked tirelessly. On the other hand, once everything was settled, I finally got to hold my first grandchild. This was all thanks to Peter's consideration. Matt and I couldn't be more grateful to him. Incidentally, Peter had a DNA test done on the child after the divorce. Needless to say, the child was his. Hearing this relieved me. Given Katie's history, there was a chance the child could have belonged to someone else. That was my biggest fear. Grow up to be a good person. How the child turns out depends on the parenting. In that sense, I have much to reflect on. I'm willing to forgive Katie if she apologizes. And when that time comes, I also want to apologize to her for being an inadequate mother. With these thoughts, I held Peter and Katie's child close.
The baby is saying that this man is not nice. The words of a mere 6-year-old child gave me courage. Kevin's arrogant facial expression changed color rapidly. Meanwhile, having just given birth, I felt a surge of strength within me. I won't forgive this awful man anymore. My name is Brenda. I'm 32 years old. I'm a nurse, but I've been on leave since getting pregnant. Congratulations, you're now 7 weeks pregnant. It was the good news we had been waiting for, 3 years into our marriage and wanting a child. My husband Kevin was overjoyed to hear about my pregnancy, jumping with happiness. Nursing is a physically demanding job with patient care and night shifts. Yet I managed my daily work looking forward to meeting our baby. But at 4 months pregnant, I fell into severe anemia and had to take leave. Kevin agreed to the idea, thinking of my health. It's fine to return to work once child rearing settles down. But things didn't go as planned. We're in the red again this month. I stared at the household accounts and piles of receipts. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. Such thoughts raced through my mind. Unexpectedly, Kevin had changed jobs without telling me, halving his salary. Initially, we managed on his $3,000 salary. Why would he change jobs without telling me, his wife, especially when I couldn't receive maternity benefits yet?
I had no idea the salary would be based on incentives. What can I do?
I wanted to scream at him. Despite our halved income, Kevin seemed carefree.
Well, we'll manage somehow. My mother only used $200 for my family's monthly food expenses.
What era is he living in? With the rising consumption taxes and prices, how can we possibly manage? Being pregnant, I can't just cut down on food expenses. We might have to cut back on my husband's beer and cigarettes, but he'd protest, saying,
Are you a demon or something for taking away the only joy of a working man?
When I encourage him to earn more, he responds indifferently. What am I supposed to do?
You have savings from before we were married, right? And you inherited your parents' estate. Use that to manage our household expenses, okay?
I lost my father and mother to illness in my 20s. Indeed, I inherited some money, but it wasn't much. And with a child on the way, I didn't want to dip into my savings so easily. Financial worries led to frequent clashes with my husband. He'd berate me, saying,
I'm providing for you while you're on leave. What's with that attitude? Who do you think is providing for you? You're home all day. You can't be that hungry. Skip a meal and make something nice for your husband.
He should realize the impact of a pregnant woman cutting back on food. But I lacked the energy to argue back to him. Nausea and financial worries weighed heavily on me. On days when I felt too ill to do housework, I'd stay in bed all day. Then my husband would boast,
I'm more of a father for supporting you while you laze around at home. You can't possibly be a good mother in such a state like that.
Maybe I should have kept working. Day by day, my dissatisfaction with my husband grew, along with a vague anxiety for the future. My heart gradually felt like it's going to break any day now. And one day, Brenda, how are you feeling? Are you okay? My sister Leah, worried about my health, came to visit with her child. Thank you, sis. I'm feeling okay today. Really? I had a tough time with morning sickness too. But hang in there. It'll be over in a month or 2. Yeah, thank you. Then, from behind Leah, a little girl peeked out. Auntie Brenda, I'm cheering for you too. Good luck. Thank you, Emma. Emma is my sister's daughter, a very cute and smart girl who is 6 years old this year. Really, she's become so articulate, it's troubling. A hint of happiness leaked through my sister's complaint. Despite the hardships of parenting, she seemed happy to see Emma's growth. What's wrong? You seem down. Are you okay? Being asked by my sister made me snap back to reality. Oh no, it's nothing. I wanted to confide in her about my marital troubles, but I managed to swallow those words. Then I noticed a pair of concerned eyes looking at me. Emma gently placed her hand on my stomach. Auntie Brenda's baby is a girl. She's cute. She also frowned slightly and said, Auntie, you're troubled, aren't you? The baby is worried. What? You can tell. Yeah, because the baby told me. She's always had a mysterious power. I remember when Emma was about 3 years old. This was when my mother, Emma's grandmother, was still healthy. One day, as my mother was about to go shopping at the usual supermarket, she received a call from my sister. When my mother casually answered, she heard my sister in a troubled voice and Emma screaming, Grandma, you must not go shopping. Don't go, okay? My mother was so taken aback by her earnestness that she canceled her shopping trip. Then, a few minutes later, news came that a car had crashed into the entrance of the supermarket. If my mother had gone, she would have been involved in the accident at that time. When we asked Emma about it later, she said, In a dream, God told me to save Grandma. It's hard to believe, but it seems Emma really does have such mysterious powers. Brenda, are you really okay? If you're worried about something, you can tell me. Sorry, I'm just feeling a bit unwell. I couldn't bring myself to tell her the truth, and she left for the day. That night...
Did you let someone in today?
As soon as he came home, my husband looked around the house suspiciously. Yes, my sister came over.
Don't let strangers into my house. It's creepy. This is why women are so selfish. I'm providing for you to live here, so you better listen to me.
My husband wasn't like this before, nor was he the type to raise his voice. It felt as though someone else had taken over him since I got pregnant and took leave. Please, don't yell like that. It's bad for our baby. Then my husband sighed exaggeratedly and said,
If you were more responsible, I wouldn't have to get this angry. Anyway, your response should only be yes. Got it? As a punishment, reflect on your actions and jot them down in words. Right now.
Reflect on my actions and jot them down in words? What does that even mean?
You're a scumbag. If you don't write and submit that paper, I won't give you any living expenses.
Since that day, my husband has frequently applied this reflection paper tactic. Whenever the seasoning of a meal was too bland, his favorite shirt wasn't ironed, or even when he made a mistake at work, he would just yell and take it out on me. And by making me write these so-called reflection papers, he seemed to be satisfied. I developed insomnia, and I had baggy eyes that wouldn't go away, and my appetite decreased. During prenatal checkups, I was always pointed out for looking pale and not gaining enough weight. Yet somewhere inside, I held on to the illusion that everything would change once our baby was born. Even when he came home late, or sometimes not until the morning, I never complained, thinking it was just a matter of enduring until the baby was born. And finally, the time for childbirth arrived. It was a holiday. I was cleaning the bathroom, carrying my heavy belly, when a dull pain pierced through my body. I quickly prepared to go to the hospital and called my husband.
Huh? So? What do you want me to do?
What I want is, please take me to the hospital. Then my husband says something shocking.
Kneel down and beg if you want me to take you.
I was speechless at his words.
You want a ride, right? Well, hurry up.
I couldn't argue back, since the pain got stronger and stronger. So I knelt down and begged him, saying, Please. I will never forget his triumphant smile at that moment. He reluctantly drove me to the hospital, and by then I was in so much pain I couldn't even speak. Yet he muttered,
You could at least say thank you.
And then went home. I cried on the delivery table. Why couldn't he speak kindly to me even when our child was being born? Why did he change so much? Even hearing my child's first cry, I felt more sadness than happiness. The baby was a girl, just as Emma had said. 3 days after the delivery date, my husband finally came to visit. Looking at our daughter's sleeping face, he said,
Hey, babies look like monkeys, huh? Not cute at all.
His words no longer hurt me. I felt as if my heart had become numb.
You can't raise a child on your own, right? I'll provide for you, so you better listen to everything I say, okay?
While he was saying this, the door to the room opened. Brenda, congratulations! You did great! Auntie Brenda, congrats! It was my sister and Emma. Their innocent, carefree smiles seemed to purify my heart a little. My husband quickly put on a nice face and said with a forced smile,
Thank you very much.
But as soon as they entered the room, Emma's expression suddenly changed. What's wrong, Emma? She stared intently at the baby's sleeping face. You know, Auntie Brenda, she knows everything. What do you mean? She's been watching. She says, this man is not good. Emma pointed at my husband as she said that. Her gaze was straight and serious.
What are you talking about? Hey, Brenda, is this kid okay?
Disregarding Emma, my husband spun his finger beside his head to indicate she was being crazy. But Emma continued, unfazed. The baby seems to have something she wants to say to this man.
Huh? That's impossible, right? Hey, Brenda, this kid is a bit...
You stay quiet. I glared at my husband, silencing him. The baby was on my side. It felt like suddenly I had gained strength. Hey, Emma, can you tell me? What is our baby saying? She says not to bully my favorite mommy. And, she says she doesn't like that man over there because he can't make her mommy happy, and that he's a worthless man. What does worthless mean?
What? What are you talking about?
Hit right on the nose with the accusation of being worthless, my husband's face turned bright red. It seemed like he was even trembling a bit. Worthless, well. Emma, does your daddy treat your mommy nicely? Yeah, he does. And does he buy you and your mommy things you want or take you places? Yeah, daddy does. Someone who does the opposite of that is what you call a worthless man. My words left my husband looking dumbfounded. Right? After being belittled and looked down upon by his wife for so long, to be explained what being worthless meant, isn't that embarrassing? Oh, so that's what worthless means. Uncle Kevin, you're totally worthless then. Emma chuckled beside my sister, who was giving my husband a stern look.
Hey, Brenda, you...
What's the matter? I just spoke the truth, didn't I?
You... Who do you think you are? I've been providing for you, a jobless person, all this time.
You know, being able to say you've supported someone means you can manage on your salary alone. Yet we ended up using my savings, and you say you've provided for me? How bold of you. I didn't back down a step. They say a woman becomes stronger after childbirth, and I really believe that's true. And after all, the husband I used to fear no longer scared me. I spilled everything he had done to me in front of my sister. Well, that's roughly it. Truly the worst husband ever. Then my sister confronted my husband. Hey, what have you done to my sister? You're unbelievable. I will never forgive you. I'll use all our resources to take you down, so be prepared. Kevin slumped to the floor, overwhelmed by Leah's fury. Oh, did I not mention? My sister is a lawyer, and so is her husband.
I was just trying to discipline Brenda because she was lazing around at home.
What? Then try saying that after experiencing morning sickness yourself. Seriously, a man who can't cherish his wife is worthless. My sister's tone was almost like a boss's. Well, maybe being a lawyer requires being a bit tough. Realizing he couldn't compete with my sister, my husband then turned his words back to me.
Is it okay for you to take this attitude with your husband? Who do you think is providing for this family? Don't get cocky just because you're jobless.
I sighed dramatically. Talk about providing after you actually do it. I can go back to being a nurse any time, you know. I can earn double compared to you, so don't get all arrogant with your $1,500 income. My husband let out an incomprehensible yell. This is a hospital, so I would appreciate some quiet. I decided to deliver the final blow. I've been prepared for a while. Here, can you write this now?
What's this?
What, can't read letters anymore? This is divorce agreement form.
That's not what I meant.
Then what do you mean? Oh, don't tell me you don't understand what divorce means.
No, it's not that.
Kevin was visibly sweating and flustered. Why was I ever afraid of this man? Am I experiencing the maternity blues? I'll leave the rest to the lawyer. If you won't sign the form right now, could you please leave? You're in the way.
But, Brenda, wait.
Thankfully, Leah managed to escort my husband out of the room.
Auntie Brenda, I'm glad for you.
It's all thanks to you, Emma. Thank you. Afterward, I asked my sister's lawyer friend to handle the divorce. Fortunately, the daily reflection papers my husband forced me to write turned into evidence of his numerous misdeeds. Thanks to that, I was able to receive a slightly larger compensation. We also made a formal agreement on child support, ensuring that if there were any delays in payment, his company would be notified immediately. My husband was against the divorce until the end, but that's where the lawyer really showed her skills. At the very last moment, I confronted him with the question that puzzled me the most. Why did he start treating me harshly as soon as I got pregnant?
I was told by a senior colleague at work that when a woman gets pregnant, she starts to love her husband more and listens to him more than ever. He said, if there's a time to train her, it's now. Didn't you take a leave immediately when I said so?
Leaving was a decision made considering my health. Did he not listen to anything I said?
Come on, Brenda. The child needs a father, right? If you're going to reconsider, now's the time.
I smiled and answered. I think there are two types of fathers in the world. Fathers who are necessary for their children and fathers who are better off not being around. Which one do you think you are? With those words, Kevin showed a look of despair. It feels great to get back at him. Now my daughter and I are renting an apartment close to my sister's family. Living in an apartment as a mother and a daughter might seem lonely to some, but with Emma visiting every 3 days, we're far from lonely.
Auntie Brenda, are you happy now?
Yes, I'm very happy.
That's great. The baby is very happy too. You'll definitely be a great mom. Definitely. They say you become stronger with every tear. It's really true, isn't it?
Yes, you're right. For the words of a child barely 6 years old, they were incredibly profound and resonated deeply.
She smiled. Babies are so cute, aren't they?
Really, they are. The occasional innocent smile from my daughter makes me forget about all the unpleasant things from the past. I'm determined to make her happy. With that resolve, I gently squeezed my daughter's small hand back.
Your husband got my wife pregnant. Pay for damages. On the day of a major life event, a wedding. An outrageous statement came out of my brother's mouth. It was a moment of weakness. Please, pay the damages. Saying that, my sister-in-law broke down in tears. We were all taken aback by the sudden situation, but after a while, laughter began to well up within us. My name is Lindsay. I'm a 32-year-old office worker. Until I was 29, my life was nothing but work, not that I was completely dedicated to it. But I had no other engagements in life. However, 3 years ago, after being introduced by a friend, I started dating Tony. I had never thought about marriage before, but when he suddenly suggested, "Let's get married," I immediately agreed. Life really is unpredictable. Once marriage was on the table, the first thing to consider was how to break the news to our parents. Visiting Tony's parents first, I found them to be very kind. And I felt confident that we could get along well. The greeting at my in-laws went without a hitch. Next, it was time to visit my own family, which is where my troubles began. My father is a regular salaried worker, and my mother is a homemaker. They're just an ordinary couple, not difficult in any way. The problem isn't with my ordinary parents. The issue is with my not-so-ordinary brother. My brother Robert, 3 years my senior at 35, has been married for 5 years. He and his wife, my sister-in-law Julia, have no children. That's a matter between them, and I don't mind it. Our parents also don't fuss over having grandchildren, understanding that life comes as it may. However, Julia's family seems to be more concerned, often saying to me, "You, being unmarried, wouldn't understand these worries." How enviable. I thought it was tough, but was surprised when a friend suggested they might be making a dig at my single status. Really? Is that a dig? I laughed it off, insisting I wouldn't become a bitter person over such thoughts. My relationship with Julia was neither particularly close nor distant, just somewhere in between. But my relationship with my real brother was different. Or rather, he has always been a difficult character, needing to be superior to me. Since childhood, he has constantly put me down, saying things like, "You really can't study, a girl who can't get boys, not loved by our parents." In contrast, he would boast about his perfect scores, a bountiful Valentine's Day chocolate haul, and how our parents loved him more. But I knew the truth. The tests he showed off with good scores were actually easy ones taken during supplementary lessons or review tests with questions meant for younger students. I am very well aware that he never shows the real test results that matter for grades. They go straight to the trash can. His Valentine's chocolates were mostly cheap candies, gathered by pleading with his classmates for obligatory gifts, even if they're just 10-cent chocolates. As for parental affection, there was no such disparity. From my perspective, our parents treated us very equally. In a way, my brother seemed pitiable. Thus, I never felt inferior and maintained a cordial distance, looking at my brother with a bit of pity. Even after becoming a working adult, my brother ended up in a company that was almost toxic. The salary barely increased, bonuses were minimal, and sometimes they weren't even paid. Living alone was a struggle due to his salary, so he always lived at home. On the other hand, the company I joined, while not a major corporation, was of a decent size. There were annual raises and proper bonuses. It might not be a prestige company, but perhaps it could be considered normal. This may have wounded my brother's pride, as his snide remarks escalated. "You, no matter how much makeup you apply, only end up looking even more unsightly," he yelled once, throwing away all my makeup. "Must be nice, getting a hefty salary. Hand over some pocket money to me," he said, pulling money out of my wallet right in front of me. That time, it escalated into a massive fight. Unable to tolerate it any longer, I quickly moved out to live on my own. For 10 years, except for Christmas, I didn't go back home. Since a sister-in-law entered the picture 5 years ago, going home became even more of a hassle. Despite the significant matter of introducing my fiancé, the thought of visiting was too much to bear. I've said it many times, but our brother and his wife are really difficult. I repeatedly warned my fiancé, Tony. "It's fine. Your brother aside, your parents are reasonable, right? I'm just going to thank them for letting me meet Lindsay. It'll be all right," he said, ever the optimist, though I was filled with nothing but anxiety. Finally, we arrived at my family home. "Oh my, what a surprise to see you here," my mother greeted us warmly, with my father repeating, "Good to see you, good to see you." The stiff smiles on his faces were probably typical of a father seeing his daughter getting married in her 30s. Despite it being a happy occasion, it likely brought mixed feelings. After introducing my fiancé, Tony, we discussed the wedding and future plans, along with some light-hearted conversation, and time passed pleasantly. However, that moment eventually arrived. The spinster sister returns. My brother remarked upon his return, delivering his first dose of sarcasm. "Robert, what about your job?" Tony and I had taken the day off to visit, but it was a weekday. and my brother was supposed to be at work. We had timed our visit to avoid him and his wife since they were living at home due to financial issues. Yet, there he was, returning home in the middle of the day. When I asked with a puzzled look, he smirked. How could I not be here when my sister's fiancé is visiting? Though I wanted to say he wasn't needed, the atmosphere became awkward. Sensing this, Tony cheerfully greeted him. Nice to meet you, Robert. So refreshing, almost too much so. Is my fiancé too good to be true? It seemed like there was a halo behind him, with a forest backdrop. Healing. The healing effect of my fiancé was off the charts. As I internally praised my fiancé, my brother's face seemed to twitch. A prideful, strong-willed brother like him wasn't used to this type. If he felt overshadowed by Tony's continuous smile, another voice soon echoed, I'm home. Hey, is Lindsay here? My sister-in-law, Julia, peeked in. Since Robert's salary alone couldn't support them, it was obvious she also worked. So, what about her job? The sudden return of my brother and his wife left me and my parents taken aback. As Robert plopped down beside me. Why? And Julia, for some reason, sat next to Tony. Why? What's with that face? I asked my brother, who had a dark, unattractive smirk. In stark contrast to my refreshing fiancé. His reply was another barb. I'm just surprised someone would marry someone like you. Huh? Hey, you, what's your name? As he rudely refers to my fiancé. When Tony answers, Robert immediately says. So, Tony, if you want to call off the wedding, now's the time. Hey, Robert. It's obvious from her looks, but marrying her would be a mistake you'll regret forever. She's utterly incompetent and a lost cause. Hey. Despite my attempts to stop him, Robert continues. Better call off the wedding before you regret it. Grinding my teeth in frustration, I was about to retort when Tony, with his unfailingly pleasant smile, said, It's okay. Lindsay is a wonderful woman. I need to make sure I don't get dumped. Such relief. My anger towards my brother is quickly swept away by a refreshing breeze. Julia, having witnessed this, remarks. Tony, was it? You're kind. Where do you work? I work at S Corporation. Oh, that's a decent company. So, you must be earning a good salary? Well, I guess it's average. Such was the conversation that started. Not only my brother, but Julia too. What kind of questions are these to ask someone you're meeting for the first time? Julia. What, Lindsay? This is important for marriage, isn't it? I'm just making sure our dear daughter doesn't end up with some weird guy. So your parents don't have to worry. That's none of your business. Such matters should have been settled by the time marriage was mentioned. Of course, I've already discussed what kind of man he is with my parents before introducing him. But I can't say such things in front of him, so I just grimace. Then, to my dismay, Julia leans on Tony, intertwining her arm with his. Julia. What? I'm just trying to get along with my brother-in-law, so stop nagging. No, that's going too far, right? Robert. I thought Robert would surely object to this, but to my surprise, he started drinking beer in the middle of the day. What are you doing? What do you mean? I'm toasting to my poor sister's unfortunate marriage. A toast for something unfortunate. It's totally chaos. My parents are at a loss, unable to handle the domineering couple. Robert is drunk, and Julia is making advances on Tony. Trying to push her away, Tony is caught in a struggle with Julia clinging to him. And me trying to separate them. What is this mess? I'm really sorry for my family. No, it's okay. It was more than I'd heard. You've had it tough, Lindsay. As we were leaving, Tony said this and kindly patted my head with a wry smile. Such a refreshing breeze. Despite the commotion during our family meeting, once it was over, there was no need to see my brother and his wife again, and things proceeded smoothly. And finally, on the day of the wedding. I'm so nervous. The one feeling tense in the bride's dressing room is me. Are you okay, Lindsay? Seeing my pale and serious face, my mother called Tony over. And now he's with me, holding my hand and offering encouragement. He really is more than I deserve. Just as I was about to gather my courage. Hey. Your brother has arrived. With a loud bang, the door flew open, marking the arrival of a storm. I had a bad feeling this would get noisy. But my brother's entrance surpassed my expectations, leaving me dizzy. Robert. Show some respect for the time and place. Despite her attempts to calm him, Robert retorted aggressively. Shut it, Mom. I've got something to say to that guy. Who could he be pointing at but Tony, my husband-to-be today? Me? Tony looked perplexed. Turning to me, Robert exclaimed. Your husband-to-be got my wife pregnant. What? I couldn't help but scream at this sudden revelation. It's confirmed by the gynecologist. The pregnancy timeline doesn't match with when I could have been the father. It means my wife, Julia, cheated. Cheating aside, why would it be Tony? Julia told me. What? I was too shocked to follow. I looked back and forth between my husband-to-be and my sister-in-law. No, I have no idea what she's talking about. Tony denied it immediately, but just then, Julia, who had been shrinking behind Robert, collapsed to the floor in tears. I'm sorry, Tony. I let slip about us. What? Tony was stunned. I'm sorry, Robert. It was just a moment of weakness. Now she was apologizing to Robert, her breakdown ensuing. You've really done it now. Pay up for the damages. With that, Robert lunged at Tony, only to be held back by our father and other relatives. The room echoed with Robert's heavy breathing and Julia's sobbing. Dumbfounded, Tony and I exchanged looks. Then, after a moment, I burst out laughing first, and unable to contain himself, Tony followed. Once we started, there was no stopping us. Despite my makeup running from the tears, I couldn't stop laughing, leaving everyone around us in shock. What's so funny? As Robert looked annoyed, just because, right, Tony?
Yeah,
Lindsay. We looked at each other, tears in our eyes, and burst out laughing again. How can you laugh at a time like this? Just pay the compensation already. Angry now, it was Julia who scolded us. The absurdity of her demanding money made my stomach hurt from laughing. Phew, that was a good laugh. But you know, Tony and I can't possibly have a child. Huh? As I wiped away my tears with a tissue, Julia looked confused. I smiled and repeated, we can't have a child. Huh? What is it? What the heck are you talking about? Using such unclassy words. The mask has completely slipped off now. Wondering if it was okay to tell, I looked at Tony, who nodded. I returned the nod and turned back to Robert and Julia. Well, the thing is, Tony has a fertility issue, making it 0% possible for us to conceive naturally. What? My brother exclaimed in surprise at my statement. We've had tests done at the hospital, so there's no mistake. If you want, we can even prepare the medical records. That's a lie. I am actually pregnant. I looked at my sister-in-law, who said this in a flustered manner. Therefore, if the pregnancy is real, Tony is not the father. If you wish to have a child with Tony, we would have to go through various injections, medication, and perhaps in vitro fertilization. Basically, treatment is necessary. What? My sister-in-law's complexion turned even paler. Then, as she glanced at my brother, an incredibly fierce expression was on his face. Hey, Lindsay, is that true? It's true. Tony himself answered my brother's question. If you still doubt us, then feel free to choose a hospital and get the tests done to see the results for yourselves. No, that's not necessary. My brother stumbled over his words in response to Tony's assertive statement. Right after, my brother glared fiercely at Julia. Eek. Hey, Julia, what's all this about? You said you cheated with Tony, right? Yes, that's right. He contacted me and I couldn't refuse because he was a bit intimidating. But it was just a moment of weakness. The only one I love is you, Robert, only you. But you can't get pregnant with Tony, can you? Who in the world did you cheat with? That's a lie by Tony. Come on, that's hardly believable. I was dumbfounded by my sister-in-law's far-fetched story. Since the day of the first meeting between Julia and Tony up to today, we've been practically inseparable. We've been too busy with wedding preparations and planning our future life. Do you think we had time for an affair? Remembering, my brother said. You said you were meeting Tony during the day and on weekends quite frequently, right? Yes, that's right. Don't lie, Lindsay. No, Julia, it's your story that's stretching it. She seems determined to pin the affair on Tony at any cost. Now, both of you, let's calm down. Unexpectedly, it was my father who interjected. His normal tone seemed oddly out of place in this situation. However, it was only moments later that my normally predictable father made an unexpected comment. Since both parties have been unfaithful, let's just call it even. I wondered if this was the right moment to use the term even. Huh? I was slow to comprehend what my father said, leaving a pause before I let out a perplexed sound. Similarly, my brother and sister-in-law both went, huh? A perfect trio of confusion. Wait, Dad, what are you saying? Lindsay might not know, but we, your mother and I, who live together, have been aware. Huh? What? As I struggled to keep up and felt increasingly confused, my father just gave me his usual normal smile. Hey, Dad. Stop talking nonsense. What nonsense? It's the truth, isn't it? My brother was flustered, but my father responded with his usual nonchalance. At this point, normal was starting to seem quite scary. Father, what do you mean? When Julia asked, my mother, still smiling in her usual way, answered. You see, Robert has been seeing another woman. It seems like he often takes off work to meet her, even arranging rendezvous right in front of our house. It's impossible for us not to notice. What? My sister-in-law couldn't help but exclaim. And Julia, meeting up with men at the station nearby isn't wise either. We've received a mountain of eyewitness reports from the neighbors. What? This time, my brother shouted in response to my mother's words. According to our parents, both my brother and sister-in-law have been frequently spotted in the neighborhood meeting up with unknown members of the opposite sex, linking arms and looking cozy as they headed off somewhere. They've been seen by neighbors and various locals, and the rumors have reached our parents. In other words, both my brother and sister-in-law were cheating. What a mess. Hey, Julia, what's this about you cheating? You've been cheating too. I didn't get the other woman pregnant. I didn't plan on getting pregnant either. What's with that attitude? Fine, we're getting divorced. Pay me compensation. What did you say? I'd rather not be with you. You pay me compensation. Wow, this is what they call a quagmire. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more out of hand, my father snapped his fingers. Immediately after, uncles and adult cousins came swarming in, grabbing my brother and sister-in-law by the arms and pulling them out of the room. As they were being escorted out, my brother and sister-in-law continued to argue. It's your fault. No, it's your fault, making for a disgraceful exit. The commotion faded as they left the room, eventually disappearing entirely. I later heard that my uncles had given them a stern talking to and sent them on their way. The room fell silent. I'm so sorry. Thinking to myself what a storm this was, I deeply apologized to my soon-to-be husband, Tony. Are you disgusted by marrying into a family like mine? That was my biggest fear. I was prepared for the possibility that our marriage could be called off. But then, I was enveloped in warmth. Tony was hugging me. It's okay. I love you, Lindsay, no matter what, and I'll protect you for the rest of my life. Hearing those words, tears began to flow uncontrollably. Redoing my makeup was a hassle, but the professionals made me look flawless again. And so, I became the happiest bride in the world, having a joyous wedding. As for my brother and his wife, unsurprisingly, they divorced. They couldn't have a proper conversation, just endless arguing, leading all the way to court, which turned into another quagmire. Despite both being guilty of infidelity, they managed to blame each other intensely. Eventually, their parents hired lawyers, and somehow, they settled things. In the end, it was decided that neither would pay compensation to the other. The child in Julia's womb wasn't my brother's, so no child support was involved. The father of Julia's child turned out to be her married boss, leading to more complications at her workplace. After being abandoned by her affair partner, Julia was taken back to her parents' house, much to their dismay and sighs. As for my brother, he ended up being sued for compensation by his affair partner, who was also married. With no savings, my brother turned to our parents for help, but was kicked out for bringing shame upon the family and not working properly. I witnessed the moment our ordinarily calm parents turned fierce. We don't know a foolish son who troubles his sister, doesn't work properly, and fools around with his mistress. Get out, they said, almost throwing him out. It's scary how formidable and normal a people can be when they're angry. What became of my brother after that, I don't know. He was fired from his job for skipping work too often to fool around. And how he's surviving now is anyone's guess. Not that it matters to me. Regardless of everything that's happened, I will never forgive them for insulting my husband on our wedding day. It's one thing to mess with me, but entirely another to disrespect my husband. Now, madly in love with my husband, who continues to bring a refreshing breeze into my life. We're looking forward to welcoming a new joy into our home. I can't wait to meet them. Saying this, Tony gently caressed my belly, where a new life was growing. Despite the challenges of infertility treatment, I was fortunate to get pregnant. Things might get more challenging from here on out, but I'm sure it will be okay. I have a premonition that, together with my kind and wonderful husband and our beloved child, we will be able to build an ordinary, happy family.